I think music is one of the key elements that can help us in cross-cultural and cross-border collaboration. So I'll be very excited if I can contribute my talent to the place where I come from and collaborate with some of the local artists, or even write a melody for because music and melody is beyond the language.
Correct.
So if there is any local artist who wants to collaborate on a project, on a studio album project, and release a couple of songs, then definitely I'll be more than happy to give back from where I have my roots. So I think that will be quite an interesting proposition. I'm open to any artists who would like to approach me. I was born in Kolkata in India, and I did my initial schooling there. Then I went off to New Delhi. There also I did my high school, and that's where basically I started performing and got more involved into playing keyboards in the school. So I had a couple of performances there, and then in 2008 I came to Australia. And from there also I did more of songwriting and composing, and yeah, it's been quite a journey of transitioning from just composing music to songwriting.
So you like grew up in Kolkata, and I also know that you spent some of your early part of your life in Africa, and also at some point in Laos, and tell us something about how it shaped your music. Or Kolkata is always regarded as a very cultural city, very art oriented place, and
a hub of culture and music. And
so how did it shape your inspiration towards music? Were you kind of like most Bengalis, we are forced to say, hey, learn Rabindra Sangeet and learn to play tabla or harmonium. How did that was that something similar, or was it something that you got drawn being part of Kolkata into that creative side of yourself?
I think I grew up in a musical family, thankfully. My mother was a trained pianist, and my dad was into Rabindra Sangeet, and he also performed on a couple of events in Kolkata. But having said that, I'm lucky that I was influenced both by Bollywood as well as English Western music right from school. So, and then I started picking up melodies of both Bollywood songs as well as songs like Elton John and Richard Marx. They are my role models. So by starting playing that, I could reproduce a melody pretty quickly. So I first tuned my ears into melody, and from then onwards I became quite good, and there used to be many people coming to my home to listen to my performances. But of course that was purely instrumental, and then I moved on to making my own melodies, and that was,
and what age was this, and when you started
I started at the age of 12 when I first got my keyboard, and thanks to my dad, he bought me a Yamaha PSR 31, and it was not the most sophisticated keyboard, but it was 5 octaves, and I could really flow my fingers across the board. And that's when I first started playing music and getting into keyboards and understanding different melodies and beats, because they all are integrated into one. And so that was pretty much the start of my journey around 12 and 13.
And then as you grew, obviously at that point we grew up around the same time. There was a huge inspiration to most people who were into art to create a band. Or were you part of any band at some point of your life?
In my engineering college, since 1992 to 1996, I joined a uni band. It was called Mind's Eye, and it was made up of quite talented individuals, and I joined as a keyboardist there. And the special thing about our band is that we were hell-bent on not playing cover songs, to write our own music and own melodies. So I think that was a big challenge we had to undertake. When audience wants to hear Guns N' Roses and Metallica and Bon Jovi, whereas we said no, there are other bands who are playing the same music. So we started from that journey. I was sort of inspired to write my own melodies and songs.
Right. I remember some, that part of your life, because I was with you. We both went to Manipal Institute of Technology, Manipal, India. It's the same college where Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella also went. So yeah, I mean, that was quite an interesting part of our lives. And I do remember like distinctly that you and probably Bobby and few others were part of the band, and it was those were very different days to where we are now.
And I also remember that I also saw you on stage doing your own dramas and theater, which you did very, very well with your own group. So I think we were both in the scene on and off the stage and really appreciated each other. I think that was fantastic.
No, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, it definitely taught us a lot about life, and even what I say, what I do now for a living is very close to drama, because as a salesman I do it every day. And I don't lose an opportunity, waste an opportunity to do it. So continuing on music, and maybe so when after 96, how did, from the 96 till you came to Australia, you also traveled a lot, and you did your masters. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life, and how did you manage to keep attached to music?
I think after 96, when I finished my education, engineering in India, I did my masters in Thailand. So there I stayed for 11 years. And it's quite a long time. And, wherever I go, I pick up the local music and attend concerts and stuff. So there was a lot of whole new wave of music from Thailand, and also local Thai music that got influenced, and I got exposed to that. And Thais are pretty big on jazz, and they're pretty good at that as well. So I used to attend saxophone jazz festivals, and throughout which lasted until midnight and 2 a.m. just sitting on the grass and feeling all the jazz music. So I got a huge influence from Thailand, staying for 11 years, both jazz and contemporary pop music. And when I came home, I used to do some jazz improvisations as well at home. So Thailand was a big contributor to mine in musical influences as well, and especially jazz.
So, is it fair to say that's where Anirban Jee was born?
I think that was more in Australia, because when I came here, I thought, oh, my surname Banerjee is a bit too long, so let's cut that short for the consumer benefits.
So you've been living in Australia for about a decade now.
Yeah, 11 years actually.
11 years, and mostly in Canberra.
Yes.
And it's such a beautiful city. I mean, I came to study here many years back, 1998, to the Uni of Canberra, and I've always, since then, I've fallen in love with this particular city.
Yes.
And it's always a pleasure to come back, to meet you and see around Canberra. Now, from a music perspective, you've been very successful in the last few years.
Thank you.
Entering into the professional musical scene. You've got 3 releases which are doing so well in Australia, being played by so many FM channels. Last several years, continuously, you are winning the Australian Songwriter of the Year award, which, for those of you who have seen, the birth of this music, of you as a musician, right from our college days, is such a proud moment. And
thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how did you, start to think that I want to go out and make a much wider base of audience listen to my music. So how did that thought come about? How did you take the first step towards that journey? And I'm sure there would have been challenges. It would have been, you would have also looked at learning a few things from a different perspective. Take us through that experience and that part of your life.
Well, I came to Australia basically as a musician, playing, more focusing on composing. I never really seriously thought of, commercializing my writing or songwriting or releases for that matter. Of course, in the uni I played, as you know, I made some songs, but here, so I thought that, I think we'll transition into composing from melody to lyrics. So that's been quite a transition. But, from my experience, raw talent is good, but it has to be professionalized, it has to be trained, and you have to do it the correct way and to understand the industry trends of what's going on. So to hone my craft, I did attend a lot of songwriting workshops, seminars, and initially in 2012 I came in contact with Matt O'Connor.
Right.
He was working for the A&R department, and he was himself an A&R manager. So through a rough demo, he discovered me and took me under his wing, and I took a couple of songwriting courses through him, and he also critiqued my song. Then I joined a sort of a long-term course with Jacques Chantil from the Megasong School of Songwriting.
Fantastic.
And also I attended seminars and workshops of Pat Pattison. He's one of the famous songwriters from US, and Jason Blum as well, who is big into pop industry and writing songs for Britney Spears and many other reputed artists. So I did train myself in lyric writing, in songwritings, because I think that was quite necessary. But then to combine that with a melody, which in a lyrics plus melody is the song. So I think I did go through a bit of a learning curve myself, but I think I'm happy it came out pretty well at the end.
Right. Now, I particularly, there are 3 songs which that got released and with people in Australia, and it's available in a lot of places for people to listen. But I particularly liked Undecided.
Yes,
it's very close to my heart, and and then I remember like AEIOU was very different.
Yeah, that was my debut release,
and the latest release is Deep Down. Yeah. So tell us something about how did you making of these songs, or how did you approach or get introduced to the singers, because they are fabulous singers. I've been very fascinated with all the 3 songs and and the singers. It's come out, it's been the whole rendition has been so good, and the whole emotion came out of the feelings, and everything came out so well.
I was quite, I don't want to be partial, but all 3 artists are from Melbourne. As you know, Melbourne is one of the music hubs in Australia, and not to say that Sydney is behind. But somehow I got in touch with some of the artists which I came to know are through the producers who did my songs. And 2 of my songs were produced in Melbourne, and 1 was in Sydney.
Right.
So I think my first release was AEIOU with a very talented singer, Celeste Newman.
Wow.
And she had hit the UK charts and all that. So, and then the second one, Undecided, which you like, is through another Melbourne singer, Judd Field.
Wow.
And the latest one in 2016, Deep Down, was with an X Factor artist, Marianne van der Horst.
Right.
So she's got a powerhouse of a voice. So I'm quite very pleased that, having been a non-performing songwriter, to have these collaborations, and all the artists were pretty pleased with the outcomes and the songs winning awards and all that. So there's a lot of talent in Sydney and Melbourne and across Australia. And as a non-performing songwriter, I think I have to work 10 times harder to attract the right kind of talent, so that they are willing to associate their names with my songs and releases. So I think that's been an initial challenge, but I'm glad it came out pretty well.
Right. And how do you go about finding the story behind the song and the subject of your writing? So what is that inspiration? How do you draw inspiration? Is it from life? Is it something very internal? So it will be very interesting to understand that part.
Well, the song Undecided, which got played in many FM stations and also won a couple of awards, That's quite a personal and honest song of mine, and it reflects some of the collective mistakes which I've made and learned and moved on. And it relates, having said that, it relates to everyone because we are not perfect. We all make mistakes. So that's a personal song, but songs like A-I-O-U and Deep Down, which are more contemporary pop. So they have been made with a purpose, because I think, you can get a song title, an idea, a concept, but to build that, it has to be a learned experience, and an effort has to be made to make it sound more commercial. And I always don't rush to the producer. I make sure that the songs are itself, just the home recorded demo, are sounding excellent before going to the production, because I think, having worked with many co-writers and artists, I think that's a common sort of a mistake that many people make, that we'll make a song which is just okay, and then the producer will do the rest. But I think as songwriters, it's our own obligation to make sure that the song is as perfect as it can be, and that will make a difference whether it's a great song or a good song, because I have heard somewhere that good songs are the enemies of great songs.
Oh, wow, so very well said. Very well
so I think we should always focus, don't rush to the producer. Make sure that your home recorded demo, even if it's a piano or a guitar, could be as perfect and as exciting it could be without any help from production. I think that's the key to making it big.
Great. And being part of the Australian music industry, and today the way the music industry is going global, there's a impact of digital, and I'm sure there are other challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you potentially face or could face, that if you would like to share something about it?
Yeah, I think my challenge is, I think everyone's challenge is whoever wants to come and join this industry and make a success out of it, because there's a lot of online platforms over the years, streaming platforms, Spotify and all other many others. They all come together. But I think the key challenges that both the unsigned artists or indie artists as well as the record labels are facing is the revenue generation of the streaming platforms are pretty low. Whereas before the streaming platforms, we had the CDs and the physical, mechanical aspect of the
that's
song.
the generation we grew up.
That's the generation we grew up. We go up to a CD shop and buy a CD or even an LP, or for that matter. Now, what has affected is that the audience expectation is that any new release will be freely available, through these streaming platforms. And of course, the number of streams you have, it generates revenue, but that's very, very less compared to buying a CD. So I think that's the revenue generation for indie artists, just working over streaming platforms is become quite a difficult task. But of course, they do perform live gigs and stuff where they might get a bit more better compensated. But for me personally, since I'm a non-performing artist, so basically I bank on songwriting revenue, and that's a bit challenging. But thankfully, I have a full-time job, so I can fund that hobby.
Sure. Fantastic. And tell us a little bit about where our audiences who are watching this show can find your work, your music. Is there a website?
Yeah, I have a website. Is www.anirbanjee. That's ANIRBANJEE.com. So that you can see some of my release songs and some rough demos as well. And also I have some earlier songs on SoundCloud, that is soundcloud.com/ANIRBANJEE. So you can visit my website, and also if you want to follow my journey, there is a Facebook page. So that's facebook.com/Anirban Jee. So yeah, just feel free to visit my page and join and follow me and join my journey, and I'll really appreciate some extra likes.
No, absolutely, I'm sure. our audience would be very, very keen, to explore more and listen to your music.
Why don't we focus on you? You have been focusing on me for quite a while, so it's time that I let out the secret of what you do. Also, I'm here to discuss one of his latest books, Orange Sky and Blue Sun, which is basically a wonderful collection of emotions that crosses boundaries and includes India and Australia, where he both stayed and worked. So I think one of the stories here does touch on some aspects of Canberra. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit more about the story which relates to Canberra and what sort of emotions are involved that helped you write the chapters?
There's a story called List, which is based in Canberra, and it's a love story between an Indian Bengali Hindu boy and a Muslim Bangladeshi girl. It is a story of language, and it's a story where how religion divides a language and how the same words are spoken a little differently. For example, as Bengalis who grew up in India and Kolkata, we would say water as jol, whereas people from Bangladesh who speak Bengali as well would say pani. Right. And it is a story which kind of looks into that dichotomy, but at the end it kind of intervenes into the common language of love, which has an universal meaning. Yes. So the story is planted in Canberra because I have a lot of memories. I have a lot of friends who come from Bangladesh, who come from Pakistan. I in fact lived here. The apartment that we used to stay as students, it was like mostly Bangladeshi, and some parts of it I could draw inspiration from our discussions. And when we used to say like, let's cook some mutton, they used to say ghost, and I used to say mangsho. And in all this I tried to weave a love story around people from both these countries who seem similar, seem united yet different, but there is always something that brings them together, which is language. But certain words are spoken differently, but they mean the same, and thus the language of love. How do you see your future? Do you have, and the reason I ask this is, you've come in from Kolkata. That's where both our roots are. It's a phenomenally artistic city. It's a cultural capital of India. You visit often. What I hear from you. Do you have any plans? Maybe a project which could be a fusion in India. So tell us a little bit about the future of music that you have in mind.
I think music is one of the key elements that can help us in cross-cultural and cross-border collaboration. So I'll be very excited if I can contribute my talent to the place where I come from and collaborate with some of the local artists, or even write a melody for because music and melody is beyond the language.
Correct.
So if there is any local artist who wants to collaborate on a project, on a studio album project, and release a couple of songs, then definitely I'll be more than happy to give back from where I have my roots. So I think that will be quite an interesting proposition. I'm open to any artists who like to approach me for such a collaboration.
That's so fantastic. So any budding artist who's watching the show, anywhere in the world, and specifically from Kolkata or in India, how to reach Anirban. He's got a Facebook page. Do send him a message there, and I'm sure he'll be keen to understand a little bit more about your work, your thought, and who knows, that could be the beginning of a wonderful creation to start with.
Yes, absolutely.
So and also I would like to tell the audience all the background music that you hear in this show, the title track, it's all composed by Anirban. So thank you Anirban for all that. Thanks
for the opportunity.
And it's so inspiring, that we collaborated back in the days of college when we were on the stage, and you did all those background things, obviously in a much more constrained environment, and we're continuing the journey even today.
And as decades later, we are here.
Many decades later, I don't want to give away our age, but many decades later. So that's wonderful. What I wanted to, ask you as probably a parting question is, what keeps you awake at night?
Well, Canberra is so quiet, so I can't blame the city the city keeps me awake. I think what keeps me awake is music, because if I have a melody in my head, which often comes at night, so I will lose my sleep over it, and I will not fall back to sleep until I come and open my keyboard and record that melody, or open my smartphone and just sing it out. So I think a fresh music or a fresh concept or a lyric, that's what really keeps me awake, and that's the main driving force in what I do.
Great. Thank you so much, Anirban,
Thank you
being
for
part of the
this
show.
wonderful opportunity, and this is my first time giving such a long interview, and it was only possible because of Shubhadeep's and this new brand, exciting new channel, Leisurely Batein. So I'm really fortunate to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
And I wish you all the success in music and in life, and most importantly, all the happiness.
Yes, thank you.
So keep playing and keep giving us new songs, and we look forward to it. So for the audience, do subscribe to our channel, Saleswala Studios, and keep watching and keep supporting Leisurely Batein.